Hello, everyone. I am Jorgen Smorgasbord. We are the DWAT podcast. With me is my longtime co-host,
Jim with a G. And you're starting this with a chill voice rather than, the action we're gonna get into.
Well, we've been out of commission for a while, so I'm not really.
We haven't struck down by the bubonic plague.
Yeah, no. So I don't really have it right at the ready anymore at the moment.
Okay, fair enough. I just think you need to have some fire in it.
Well,
purge out the flames of sickness that we've both endured.
Well, you know what does have fire in it?
This episode?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, I'm excited for today because finally we have the episode where we can discuss, is this episode about Gamergate?
Editing Jorgen here with, first of all, some content warnings, because this episode touches on a lot of things from suicide to sexual assault to torture and abuse. We might have missed something there. Check out, episode contents warning for this one. Also, a quick administrative note. We ended up recording the Bandersnatch episode out of order, so look forward to that after Season 4, before Season 3. Thank you very much. Cheerio. So let's start with a very simple beginning. Should our dear listeners watch this episode?
Well, we should start by I feel like I should mention the name of the episode.
I can't see it. It's too far away.
It's USS Callister.
It's USS Callister.
It sure is USS Callister.
Should our dear listeners watch USS Callister?
Shall we count this in?
Kinda? No.
Okay, wow.
No, okay, so, to set the stakes a bit, and...
Yeah, I think we do have some context we need to get into here.
Yeah, no, so usually, the oft-disrupted formula of this podcast is Jim has seen the episodes, and I haven't.
And this is true for this episode,
I should specify. True for this episode.
But there is a little tabernacle here.
I have seen Star Trek, and Jim hasn't.
I've seen 75% of 2 episodes of Star Trek.
Yeah, no, so, we're coming with, separate knowledge bases into this episode.
Oh, yeah. I would say, kind of in general, my sci-fi basis is a lot more modern than yours. I mean, you're the one with, all the, Heinlein books and stuff.
I've never read Heinlein in my life.
Whatever, the other one.
Yeah, you might be referring to the great Polish writer Stanislaw Lem.
Yeah, exactly.
Who is a lot better than Heinlein, because he's not a fascist.
Oh, okay, that's... You know what? Should have researched before I got into this.
Anyway, but yeah, no, so we have very different approaches to this episode, and, the quick recap that I would give is this episode has 2 narrative layers, right? On the one hand, there is the real world, quote unquote, which is like a sci-fi future.
Very mildly sci-fi.
Yeah, a lightly sci-fi future.
Which is kind of common for Black Mirror, so that isn't too hard to get into.
With a game studio that is developing the game Infinity. The game studio has sort of 2 leads that hate each other situation, which is just this is the founders, and one of them is the tech guy. And the tech founder, we are introduced to sort of through, he's kind of our point of view character in the beginning.
Yeah. For the first, I want to say 25 minutes.
But we have another point of view character.
Her name is Nanette Cole, if that's what you're looking for.
Yes. No, I'm looking for the name of the actress, actually.
Kristen Milioti?
Yeah, Kristen Milioti. And I'm actually quite familiar with her from 2 other things she's done, specifically. And we'll get back to that. But she's our other point of view character.
She's a newly hired programmer of some description. I, of course, being a pure individual, have never encountered programming in my life. I do not know how accurately this represents real game studios.
Yeah, no. I have like there's a lot of things going on here.
Oh yeah.
Because unfortunately, I will confess that I've played video games before, and I'm somewhat familiar with the thing. So there's like a lot of like commentary about game studios happening here, but the Kristen Melody is going to be our point of view character on the second layer of the narrative, which is like it's
It's VR. Yeah, it's a Star Trek modded VR game. That's the same game they're playing on.
Yeah, this is a mod for the game the main game studio is developing. And
it's been turned into a torture chamber, essentially.
Yes. No, it's been turned into a simulation for people to be in.
Yeah, and it's partially the point is just that like this is our where is he? Jesse Plemons, who is our chief technical guy at the game studio, is both using this sort of like sub-universe of a VR to punish his co-workers by stealing their consciousnesses and uploading them into the system.
By stealing their persons and just uploading them in his simulation to be his playthings forever.
Yeah. And thus also getting to experience some sort of nostalgia because he's really into Star Trek. Yeah, and as a running note we've had in the past, Star Trek is called Space Fleet in this episode, and Netflix is called Netflix in this episode.
Yeah, no, which I think I understand them not calling it Star Trek, probably just for legal reasons.
Oh yeah, but they cut it really close, I think, with a lot of this.
Yeah, no, it's not just transparent; it's overt. And there is like a particular moment of homage that's like probably the most unadulterated homage, which is the poster for this episode, which is just like an old Star Trek style poster, which is interesting because with this whole torture situation, it's not entirely clear how this episode feels about Star Trek, but the resolution of the episode is essentially that through more or less heist, the imprisoned consciousnesses plan their escape by inveigling Kristen Melody in the real world into their plan to steal all the stolen DNA back and then themselves use the game code to escape the modded simulation in an attempt to all kill themselves to escape this hell, but instead escape into the online game as NPCs?
I guess. I mean, yeah, they seem to have freedom, so...
Yeah.
It's a failed suicide plot, but in a very unique way.
Yeah, no, so... I have a lot of feelings about this. Mm-hmm. Because, when usually we talk about episodes, does this episode justify its gimmick is one of our go-to questions by now. Mm-hmm. And...
I'm interested in your opinion on that one.
I want to modify the question because I have an axe to grind, which is, does this episode justify talking about Star Trek to tell this version of itself? And I want to say the answer is no.
Okay, so you're already treading dangerous ground for me because I don't know, but to me, I was surprised, I think, and even on the first time I watched this episode, how hard they stuck to this is Star Trek, but very closely to serial numbers filed off, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
It is the same aesthetics. It's very true to its inspiration in a way, and then it uses that to play satire ? But I think it's an interesting one because, like, to me, if we're looking at this and trying to view it as a genuine work of art, trying to be like a good faith interpretation that this episode says something, using Star Trek, I feel like, is very obviously like this is nostalgia, right? Like, this is looking back, because they mention in the episode how, like, it's a wholesome universe. They have some old-timey things that we might object to, but by and large, like, it's about the nostalgia and the safety of it, I think. And you don't necessarily need to use Star Trek for that, I think. Like, Star Trek is interesting because it's usually more progressive than a lot of other shows.
Yeah, no, like, Star Trek, like, well, like, the thing that's sort of sticking in my craw here is that Star Trek, like, categorically, like, there's a lot of, like, good sci-fi out there. Mm-hmm. Like, I recently started watching Babylon 5, and I'm like, oh, they used to make good sci-fi. That's crazy. Like, it wasn't just Star Trek out there, but this was just, like, a thing that people were making. Like, I don't remember, like, just, like, a proper, like, sci-fi show, of recent. Like, I guess there's, like,
The Expanse, to me.
Maybe. I guess there's, like, the Seth MacFarlane one, but that's, like, its whole own thing. Anyway, like...
Apart from that, I think it's just been dominated by the Star Wars resurgence, right?
Yeah, which...
is unfortunate, but it's the world we live in.
No, I mean, honestly, like, I don't even count that. It's, like, very different vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, no, so... But, like, Star Trek kind of, like, stands out, like, in the pack by, like, being like, oh, no. This is the good future, right? Like, that's what, like, makes Star Trek, like, distinct. And, like, it makes it, like a bit of a weird beast at times, because, like, it's hard to make the show in the good future, because, you need to have conflict to tell stories. But, like Star Trek is, like, at its core, like, a deeply earnest attempt to be utopian. Mm-hmm. And, like, different people have their different takes, and they tend to diverge from that, like, here and there. But, like, fundamentally, like, that's...
Right,
that's
it's the opposite of cyberpunk, essentially.
Yeah, no, it's like, hey, what if we didn't have poverty and went to space? Right? What if we, like, didn't have currency and everyone was taken care of? Right? It's like the most, like, optimistic imaginable, like, baseline. And it's used for, like, so we're gonna have, like, something dark here about nostalgia. Like, that kind of hurts.
I guess here's an interesting question. Do you think there's an attempt to deconstruct Star Trek at all in this episode? Because to me, like, when I think about, like, okay, if you're gonna do a typical deconstruction of, say, a very, very bog standard, like, fantasy setting, then you have, like, the knights and the kings fight, and also, like, a million peasants starve to death.
My gut instinct is that it is window dressing.
Okay. Because, like, going forward on that, right? Like, that's how you sort of deconstruct the idea, because you're looking at the, like, does the lens this genre hold up? Like, does it make sense? Can we point out the flaws of it? And so it's a lot easier to... If you're deconstructing Star Wars, right? All you need to do is be like, yeah, so when the Death Star exploded, I don't know, like, all of these planets got wiped out by the debris. Like, it's really easy.
Yeah, no.
But, like, there's like, finding that malice behind it. And deconstructing Star Trek, I think, is comparatively interesting because, as you say, it is, at least to some extent, actually concerned with the average human, or the average sapient person. And, like, pointing out that, like, these people have good lives, like, poverty is gone, and we have a much more egalitarian society. And that's not really what this show, or this episode, does not go for any, like, examining that at all, right? It doesn't care about the utopia, it only cares about the presentation of Star Trek as a wholesome show.
Yeah, and I think, like, you can, like, there's an argument to be made here, right, that, like, maybe wholesomeness is bad, and I think that is something that the episode kind of ends up saying.
To an extent, yeah.
But like, I guess we should like dive into it.
I was going to say the same because I think there's a lot of interesting things that, in all honesty, in a weird Black Mirror tradition we've gotten into this point, I think there's a lot of interesting things to say about this episode, but it happens after this episode was produced, in terms of a real timeline.
Yes. No, I actually looked something like somewhat niche up during the episode, and we will get there, but also after the episode. So...
Yes, absolutely.
To start with, we have this episode really like wearing its influences on its sleeve, right?
Yeah, because you have it must have been like 4 minutes long. There's an intro section that has like sort of blurrier.
Yeah, no, like this is like old Trek. This is original Trek being like, and it's like essentially like a light, like not even like lighthearted, but it is like a send up of it, like it's like the captain's always right, and everyone's groveling a little bit, like everyone's like a little bit too like invested in his coolness, and in the end he kisses all the women on the bridge, right? It's like like this is like a bit of a Kirk parody.
But it's essentially like the story here isn't important. It's just a little bit of like there's a space fight, and then we zoom out on that. But it has the like slight implications of like, there's something slightly troubling about this.
Yeah, no, like it's like they're going for like a bit of an uncanny vibe, and like it lingers a bit too long for my taste. But
I think so as well.
To
be honest, I don't think this section needed to be here at all.
No, I think it's like you pitched this to me as the Star Trek episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking like, this is like an episode set in the like space future.
I see. Okay,
so I was like, this seems like nonsense, right? Like this is ending too quickly. This isn't like cogent. This cannot be the tone we have for the whole episode, and it's not.
No, because we immediately cut to.
Well, hold on. I want to immediately veer off into like a marginal tangent here.
We're very good at veering off, so
so
play to your strengths.
I want to talk about the casting already.
Okay.
So, the main actor, James Preston?
Jesse Plemons?
Jesse Plemons. He, like, would you regard him as a Philip Seymour Hoffman type?
Jorgen, like...
Right, I'm talking to the wrong person. I guess I'll just throw that out there for the audience. Like, I guess he doesn't quite have the same acting chops, but who does? Like, that's not on him. So, but we do have a second guy we love to see, already appearing in this opening, section.
You're thinking of Jimmy Simpson.
Jimmy Simpson.
Weird dude from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
And, like, the hacker from House of Cards, and I think he might be in Mr. Robot. Like, he's just in shows.
He's a dude. Like, he gets around.
Like, if you, dear listener, like, get out your device with web access and look at Jimmy Simpson right now, you'll go like, it's that guy. He always brings an off energy to things.
That's how even I hooked on to like, wait, I know who this actor is, because I'm just like, there's a vibe here.
Yeah, and he's bringing it here too, but in a different way than usual, probably. Mm-hmm. But I guess like to like move on a bit, like we move on to the game studio.
Yeah, because I think I want to do it because there is some cinematographic thinking here, right? Because we cut from Jesse Plemons being celebrated and kissing the many women folk of his ship, human and alien alike, into him standing in a crowded elevator and meekly going, "Please let me through," and we just have this like. It's not a parade of humiliation for the office, but it's adjacent, right? It's a parade of, okay, my subordinates and colleagues do not really respect me.
Yeah, it straight up did not scan me for me that this guy was the boss.
I had honestly forgotten that he was from my first viewing, and then I see like he goes into the office and it says Chief Technical Officer, and I'm like, oh, that seems pretty high up for all the, like sort of blatant levels of mild disrespect he endures.
Yeah, no, and like the intern is like, like forgetting his coffee and stuff. Like,
yeah,
like we're drawn in here for like a bit to be like, oh man, this guy's life kind of sucks, and we're kind of feeling for him, and I guess he has to escape into fantasy, and we get like he like calls one of the people like by their in simulation name with like their title or whatever.
Yeah, because we get to see that like even if we don't know exactly what's going on, we now understand that like, okay, that intro sequence where he was captain, like his co-workers are also in that.
Yeah, and we are also told by the miscommunication that they're not consciously in that, which is something I nevertheless kind of kept thinking, because that was sort of the obvious interpretation, like,
right.
They all game together. But no, that's not what's happening.
But it's like, it's a subtle thing to be like, okay, clearly that's not what's going on, so something else is going on. But so far, there are different interpretations you can go with until they clarify.
Yeah.
Which they do very explicitly.
Yeah, and we basically have Nanette Cole, or
yes,
Milady, showing up and being like, oh, I'm the new person, I'm like a big fan of your code.
Yeah, which I don't want to speculate too much about the programming people on here. Is that a real thing that happens?
I don't know. The closest in my life that I've come to writing lines of code is like doing a statistics program that's like where you can like tell it what statistics to do by writing. Like, I have no idea.
I'm just curious if there are people out there who's like, that dude, great coder, I would like to express my admiration. But that is what happens here, so...
Yeah, and what we're given to understand in this, or like this is one piece of like something that's communicated multiple times to us. It is that this guy is like genuinely like a coding virtuoso, and his partner, with whom he presumably started the studio to some degree in some shape, is like he's useless, right? He's a guy who's like,
he's the face of the company.
Yeah, he's a face of the company, and he kind of sucks, and we like get him being like kind of a sex creep.
Yeah, like it was weird because like we get a discussion between two of the female workers who are like, he's nice, but he does also creep on everyone. Yeah. So like be careful on that.
Yeah, no, and we have that being acted like fairly directly with him like sitting on desks like
like he's being the cool CEO. I actually think like there's an interesting, very small detail here, which I think if we look at how this is structured, like how the game studio just like looks and feels, it's a lot more restrained than the usual corporate depiction in Black Mirror. Like it doesn't seem like an, oh my god, it's an amazing place to work at, but it's also not the like post cyberpunk sleek dystopia that shows up in some other Black Mirror episodes. I think it's kind of like interesting. Like it just seems quite down to earth. Like it's,
well, I think they like, to me, like this place seems awful, right? Like this has like big like dismal workplace energy.
It is dismal workplace, but with the like, like work sucks, but we're gonna get through it sort of vibe between the co-workers.
It's not like, there's mold dripping through the walls. It's just like,
Well, like I think that's one thing, but I think the counterpart to compare it to is the like fully sleek, like chrome, not a spot, like everyone's, because that shows up in Black Mirror a lot. I think it's the like, everyone's like sitting on like weird furniture and being like really like, oh my god, we're like, moving fast and breaking things, that sort of vibe to it, while being also very sleek. I don't know. I just find it like kind of an interesting breakaway from the pattern.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think this episode has two writers, and I want to say just like shooting from the hip that I guess it might be Charlie Brooker too, actually. But like that, at least one of the writers has worked in a game studio, and is putting a lot of texture on here.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like it feels like a textured studio.
Yeah, like this is very real. This is like this oozes very similar.
Yeah, it's mildly soul eroding, but not like soul caustic. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, we see him going through a bit of a day, meeting this Nanette Cole, aka Kristen Milioti, and there's indications that he's having like I see a female has taken an interest in my programming, and this is where I'm like getting real Gamergate vibes here.
Well, like we're being like led on for a bit longer still, right? Because like we're not given the like reveal on like what to think about this guy yet, because so far we've been led to believe that his life sucks and we should probably be kind of sympathetic.
Yeah,
right, like he's got all this talent but he's not being respected, and that is something that is like diegetically true.
Yeah,
however, we get a bit of a sequence of events being tossed into gear here, which is that he is, let's very charitably say, enamored with the new hire. So he's not paying attention during a conversation with one of his subordinates and okaying a bunch of changes to the next patch that they should not be making.
Yeah, like
that we have,
of the conversation.
like a scene before, I've been told like, oh yeah, no, do this next patch in good time, and the subordinate is like, yeah, no, we can do it like tomorrow, but if we do all these changes, it'll be on Christmas. Yeah. And he just like absent-mindedly goes like, oh yeah, no, that sounds good, do that. Not having listened to anything because he was looking at the pretty girl.
Yeah, and I think there's also like, there's something here that I thought might have turned out to be more important, but it's kind of whatever due to future consequences. But there's kind of like this feeling, I think, that like Jesse Plemons is getting the pretty girl to be interested in him and his work and his interests in this nostalgic space fleet show. And then the actual CEO comes in and goes, "Hi, I am a 5 out of 10 on the charming scale, beating your 3 out of 10, thus I will acquire the pretty girl." I thought it was going to go further. It didn't, but it's worth mentioning that it's like kind of set up. I think of it like it's a bit of hatred at least between them.
They play with it a little bit more because like she is still like I would love to talk to this guy. Like I'm interested in.
She seems
work.
loyal.
Yeah, no,
she's like ride or die bitch on the you make good code.
Yeah, no, she's like genuinely like she has like researched this company, found one person who's like really good at his job, and she's like, oh yeah, no, like this guy's gonna be my tutor. Like I'm gonna like build this guy's gonna be my mentor. I'm gonna like fulfill a dream here.
Yeah.
And so like we have him sort of like getting like resentful when she's like not even like buying it that much. Like she's getting whisper networked that the big CEO, who was being a light sex pest, is one.
Yeah.
And like she's just like and then she gets whisper networked about the other guy too.
Yeah, because she's having this conversation and she goes, "Man, Jesse Plemons is so cool." And then her coworker goes, "Nah, he stares at people. And he's weird." And we're kind of like, yeah, he does do that, to be fair.
And we're never like given information about where this would have gone if our main guy had just been normal for a bit.
I'm going to go disarm podcast.
Yes, the podcat is currently wreaking a bit of havoc and being very loud. But yeah, no, like we are like given to given an image of a guy who is like successful and professional and like who is being like recognized for it like for the first time in a while, and who like cannot like fathom that recognition. And at this point the other shoe drops. Because the previously set up like, he's okayed the patch because he wasn't paying attention, has his colleague, the big CEO, be really mad at him. Extremely justifiably so, even. And he should
quite
have...
honestly.
What's weird here is that we don't really have a time scale, and he should have, like, the reasonable thing here is to go, like, sorry, I missed my shot there. Can we just, like, do all that stuff later?
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen. No, what he does do instead, and he never fixes this either. He's never like, hold on, let's put this stuff on ice and just, like, put the patch out so we don't have to work long on Christmas or whatever. No, like, what happens is, instead, he goes into his mind palace, and by...
Yeah, Star Trek Mind Palace.
Yeah. And he chokes the copy, the guy who looks like his CEO, in the air, and we are starting to understand, like, oh no, he's bad. He's got bad vibes.
I think it's fun because, like, we get the, like, full choking scene of him choking his boss, or co-boss, I suppose. Very Darth Vader, honestly, for a little bit. And then he says mean things to the others, but, like, very lightly, just, like, kind of sternly ordering them around. And it's like...
Yeah, no, like,
that's also bad, but, you know. But yeah. And we get a scene like, oh, clearly everyone on this ship is uncomfortable around him. So there's more to this than this just being a punching bag as well.
Yeah. And... I don't know how much intervening scene there is before the other shoe dropping.
Which is when he...
Or rather, the third shoe, I guess?
There's a lot of shoes here.
Yeah, no, they're dropping the big shoes on us.
What a... I don't think we did anything there, Jorgen, quite frankly, but I'm glad we tried. But yeah, he goes, finds a cup of coffee that Kristen Milioti drank from, and it's like, I'm gonna swab this. And, you know, already we're like, okay, this has now been established. He's really weird. Takes it home and puts it in, like, a DNA analysis machine, question mark?
Yeah, no. And, I get annoyed here, right? Because it's like, he's making a copy, but how will it have the memories? This is never investigated. It has the memories. The DNA has the memories of the person.
Yeah.
If you leave your spit on a coffee cup, that spit has your life's memories down to your photo box password. Oh yeah, no, they didn't go for Dropbox.
That's actually true. Oh, I thought it was Photobucket, actually.
Is Photobucket real?
Like 15 years ago it was real, I want to say. I think I used it from stuff. I'm not going to get into that.
That's a deep cut.
It is a deep cut.
So I guess Photobucket real.
Yeah. But wait, was it called Photobox in universe?
No, I don't think so. I just reached for a word.
That's totally fair.
Yeah, no, and like, I want to linger on this because, like, the way this is shot and, like, scored is like this motherfucker is ready to pounce. Like, he, like, frantically digs through the trash for this coffee cup to get the DNA. Yeah. And then he, like, stares at the upload progress bar and at her, like, back and forth. Like, yeah. Like,
and this takes, like, 16 hours, I think. So it's like, he was really, like...
Like, he did sleep in the intervening time.
Yeah, but he committed a work day to the staring.
Yeah, no, like, it's... Like... They move from, like, oh man, this guy is kind of downtrodden, you should feel bad for him, to, like, psych, he's a sick freak who, like, steals his co-workers', like, DNA samples. Like, they crank that dial up so fast, and it is, like, so uncomfortable because it's so frantic.
I think it's also really helps that the detail is that he does this immediately after Kristen Milioti answers a coworker's question and goes like, no, I'm not into him. I just think his code is cool. Which, first of all, very funny way to respond to that. But also just like, and I know this is a little bit nitpicking, but I'm also like, if a coworker I've known for a couple of days asks me, are you into this other person that you work for?
Like, at most, this might be her first date.
Yeah, but if someone like that asks me, do you like this other person at your workplace? The odds of me saying yes, even if it's true, is below zero. Like, there are so many issues with saying yes, even if it's true.
Yeah, no, if it's true, you're less likely to say it.
Yeah, like, it's... And, like, she goes, no, it's nothing like that, which is...
Like,
also what you would say if it was like that.
Like, she genuinely even puts, like, a little bit of protest too much juice on there, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, she is starstruck earlier. Like, we are, like, it's never clarified, but there is, like, definitely left open the possibility that she, like, is genuinely just, like, she is reverent of this guy. And, like, maybe she is a little bit weird about it.
Yeah. I think she's definitely a bit weird about it.
She's definitely a bit weird about it. But she might be into him, but she would never say that. But he
obviously is like, well, she has now slighted me by denying my complete lack of, courtship.
I mean,
she's going in the machine.
Yeah, no, he's like, she is. I'm never getting to this woman because I've overheard her saying to a coworker that she's not into me, and. It's DNA steal on time.
Yeah, saying she's not into me in a very LA Noir doubt kind of way.
and this is when we like switch layer to primarily take place in the simulation.
Yeah, because we have like I want to say I think we have an alien scene here. Like she wakes up, like begins exploring her completely barren surroundings in this like harsh blue glow, and is like, where the hell am I?
Yeah, like, she wakes up, like, in a med bay or something, and there's no people. Like, there's no persons present. And, like, she stumbles around for, like a minute or so.
Yeah.
Before, like, stumbling onto the bridge.
Yeah, like, it is properly horror-themed at this point.
Yeah, and, like, to be fair, right? And she gets a, simulation reality lowdown from... Like, again, actually the same co-worker who was giving her the, like, hey, the bosses are creepy, by the way, lowdown.
Yeah, she gets a bit of a Greek chorus lowdown. Like, they really do kind of take their time before being like, hey, so you've been copied in here and you're stuck forever.
Yeah, and, like, this is the show also, like, lingering on it a bit and really, like, letting us sit with the emotion, but it's like we kind of get it. Like
it's not really complicated. Right? Moment you see him, like the evil man at the core of this, Jesse Plemons, using his co-captain on the ship as a footstool, you're like, I get it. But they really take their time to drop it.
One thing we are given to understand in the process is how memory works, because like memory is like recorded until the point where your DNA is stolen.
Yeah.
And that is something that like comes through in the revelation.
Yeah,
scene.
like a couple of them ask like, hey, what's up with me on the outside nowadays? Like, what year is it and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
and we also get, like, I think it's one thing to note is that we also get that at this point, this is the first time we see them acting out of character, right? Yeah. They're just like, yeah, I'm Tom, I'm not Chief Space Officer Loretta.
Yeah. And and we get the setup. They're like always conscious, but when the big boss logs on, they have to like play to his whims.
Yeah, because he'll punish them.
Yeah, and soon enough, exactly that happens.
She goes, I'm not gonna roleplay Star Trek, and the bad man goes, yeah, you are. But
Agent
first,
Smith time.
He does really Agent Smith her.
Yeah, though like with a little bit less gusto.
Yeah, he has a weird pose he does when he punishes them, and like I don't know what to think about it. Like it's just strange. He just holds out his arm like he's doing the Darth Vader choke again, but like weirdly. I don't know. I don't think there's a lot to talk about there. He just like
it's a wizard pose.
Yeah, it's just
sure.
It's just pointing out that this is his torture chamber. He can torture them. He's referred to as an asshole god here, and I really question the god part. Like his powers seem very oddly delineated.
Well, I mean, he like writes the code for the world.
Yeah,
right?
but he also seems remarkably limited later. But I suppose we'll get to that.
Yeah. Like I mean, one could argue that he's interested in challenge, but you know, one could also not bother with that because he clearly isn't.
Yeah, like he's and this is like where we get the full like, okay, here's his true psychology at work. He's just kind of like a weird, gross bully, right? Like, and there's not a lot more to that.
Yeah, no, he's a weird, gross bully in a situation of completely unchecked power.
Yeah,
and like he like does his like meek everyday thing, and then he like, I guess I can. Oh, one analogy I guess I want to draw is American Psycho.
Okay, I have not seen that movie.
So spoilers for American Psycho. American Psycho has a twist at the very end that is like, oh yeah, no, all these murders, that's just like that's what he thinks about to like get through his day where he hates his coworkers. Like there's no simulation shit there going on, but like that he is just straight up like doing American Psycho. He's like, oh yeah, no, I'm gonna like kill and torture all these people in my head. But like he gets like a weird extra layer strange with it, because what he tortures them into is complying with his nostalgia fantasy.
Yeah, and like we get little bits of extra detail here. Like in general, like some of them will point out like, oh yeah, we've tried escaping a bunch, we've been punished a bunch. We've tried to like fulfill his fantasies better, just to make sure he punishes us less. We don't have genitals. That's a big one.
Yeah.
I think that's like a really distinctive scene, for better or worse, in this episode.
Yeah, no, like there's this episode like for like it's like straight up headed towards like sexual assault discussion hell, and I guess that's a disclaimer we'll put up front.
Yeah. Because it turns out him kissing all the female crew members is obviously part of the fantasy.
Yes, but like he has sanitized this world by having nobody have like genitalia or even assholes, which is extra.
Okay,
because
let's get into the deep lore discussion here. Do they have assholes? Because they say they don't shit.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of ambiguous.
Which really, because they have a discussion where they say they tried humping their like Barbie genitals together and it didn't work, and I'm just like, listen, clearly you have fingers and potentially at least one hole. Like I'm just saying, I think the sexual imagination here is very limited by that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to veer too much in that direction, right? Because like what I'm getting from this, and I'm like particularly thinking about a scene slightly later where the like other crew members go like, listen, just kiss him, you get used to it.
Yeah.
Wait, that is actually in the order of operations earlier. She gets reassured, don't worry, there's no tongue. So we're just like given this like very clear abuse situation, and we get like the weird like limits on the abuse. And to me, to a degree, like I read that as the episode saying we're not super interested in this angle.
Yeah, I think it would be way harder if they went all the way. I also do think it says something interesting about like nostalgia here, right? And like the fantasy.
Yeah, I think
because I would. So this is, I think, like a hot topic potentially. I kind of think that he's a bit like the main evil guy here is portrayed as like a little bit asexual in a way. Like I don't think sexuality ties into his like abuse and domineering.
So,
and I think that's really interesting.
I think it definitely. So I think the question that is like left like open by the episode here is whether that's like something he like consciously does not do, because like even though like he is being insanely evil, he's like no this like it would sully the fantasy. Right, like I think there is like an argument to be made that we are getting like a bit of like the weird internal justification layers that this guy has.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, like assault is fine as long as it's just kissing.
Yeah, without tongue.
Without tongue.
That would be over the line. But yeah, I mean, like, and everyone in the pod cites is like, we did some sort of minor infraction against him. That's why we're in here. So like, that's also like I think a nod towards the idea that he has some sort of justification.
Yeah. Like they do just like drop a couple of hints at like the sort of insane internal logic this guy like kind of has, but like he is like he's horrendous, right? So like it's
and I think he vibes as a villain, right?
Yeah.
Like, he does the Darth Vader choke. He like sneers from his captain throne. Like he's probably a little bit into the villain. Like, he does villain monologues as well.
No. Like, he, like, and I think there is, like, just, like, he is an interesting character because of this, like, because I think, this is going to sound very bad, but I think this is something the episode is kind of saying, right? Like, him, like, not being, like, a direct sex creep, I think is part of how the episode sort of thinks of him as kind of stunted.
Yeah, like, because, and this is where I think, this is where it gets into Gamergate for me, because I think it's very interesting, the use of, like, escapism and, like, power fantasy, right? Like, and we talked about escapism in general, but I think, first off, the use of, like, gaming and, like, there's even a point earlier in the episode where, like, he's showing off his, like, look at all this cool Star Trek merch I have, and, Christine goes, wow, they have very short skirts, the female characters in the show. That seems, like, a bit impractical. So it's kind of, like, I think it's pointing out to, like, nostalgia of, like, going back into, let's say, less diverse pasts of, like, geek stuff, and celebrating them and using them as this like power fantasy. And I think, let me check when this episode came out in 2017. So this is after Gamergate, and I promise I'm not going to stop on Gamergate too much, but like I think this has, if anything, been way like accelerated over the last year since this came out. Like as a phenomenon, right? Of the idea of like, I mean, when we're recording this, like, Black Myth Wukong recently came out, and we had this whole, like, don't talk about feminist propaganda in relation to this game and stuff like that. And I think that's really interesting, right? Like, because he's essentially casting back to, like, this purity of nostalgia, in a sense, where he gets to be in charge just because he is, you know?
Yeah, no, like, it's, I think... I don't think it's like a particularly potent satire of Gamergate because
it's not.
Because like he isn't like that much of a sex creep, and I think that would probably have to actually be part of it.
Yeah, but I think there's an interesting thing here, right? Where like, okay, like if we're really getting into feminist analysis here, I kind of think this is an interesting parallel to something like pickup artists and stuff like that, where like the point of sex, or the point of kissing all your female crew members after you defeat the space pirate, isn't about any...
It's status.
Yeah, it's status. It's not about any physical pleasure or joy or love or anything like that. It is, I am dominating these other people.
Yeah, it is never looking outside of masculinity.
So like, I think in that perspective, it is really interesting that, like, sex is absent here, right? Yeah. Because it is him fulfilling, like, a traditional role, and not showing sex on the screen, by the way, importantly. Like, I think that there is something interesting there about the, like, clearly, you know, kissing is an expression of something, but we draw the line very quickly thereafter. No tongue.
Yeah, like, like one tiny thing I want to flag, like for, I guess this is a call forward and call back,
Yeah.
depending on which direction you're traveling.
Hell yeah.
In Striking Vipers, like, we do also just straight up have the same VR technology, and we have,
Yes.
like, the same, like, cinematic language of, like, oh, yeah, no, just, like, leaned back, kind of drooling. And it's done a bit differently in Striking Vipers, and it's lingered on more, but, like, we kind of see a seed of that here.
Oh yeah. The sex connection occurred to me that it's kind of funny, because there's, not to spoil too much, but there is a scene later where we confirm that in their real game, they do appear to have genitals, which really poses some questions. And, yeah.
And I forgot my second point.
That's
Where were
totally
we?
fair. We are here at where... We are at the halfway point, where Black Mirror has established all the necessary components, and is now going to do a heist plot for the rest of it. And I feel like we need to break here for a little bit, because, like... Please correct me if you feel differently, Jorgen. I don't think I can extract anything of, like, ideological value from the rest of this episode, so I think I have to stop here and be like, can we extract something before this? And this is what I've been kind of trying to do.
Yeah, no, let me consult my notes here.
Yeah.
Right here it says, bizarre tone jumble.
We do have the line, and I mean, I think if you watch this episode, you will be familiar with stealing my pussy is a red line, which is where, like, okay.
Sorry, it's stealing my pussy is a red fucking line.
Okay, apologies. I was trying to be
I
wholesome.
wrote it down. Because you earlier noted that I had omitted the word fucking from the subtitle.
That is true.
And I didn't actually catch if they omitted it on that line also. But I thought, I should write it down for posterity. So we have the swearing in there.
Yes. But yeah, like, because I think that is when the show says, we are done talking about anything real. This is going to be a heist plot to finish off, and this is pretty solidly the halfway point, I want to say. Ish, at least, like, chronologically. Like, you know, we are here, we are both active diggers for meaning, but, like, I can't find anything after that point.
I mean, like, we do have two parts of this episode, but they are a bit, like, it is not like a clean cut, right? We do have this, frankly, really terrible line as, like, a fairly obvious separator, but, like, fundamentally, we have, like, the horror half and, like, the hijinks half, right?
Mm-hmm.
But...
And we've encountered that structure before. Though, to be honest, the hijinks stuff, yeah.
But they still, like, sprinkle in some hijinks a bit earlier.
Oh, yeah.
And they sprinkle in horror in the hijinks, right? It's not a strict boundary.
For sure. But I don't think they sprinkle in meaning after this, is I guess my fundamental thing.
I mean, I'm struggling, even with the first half. So
I know, I'm doing the same here, Jorgen, but I'm dedicated. I have my shovel, I'm digging, okay? That's what we committed to when we started this podcast.
Okay, so,
do you wanna run through the rest of the episode, like, quickly?
In order to be halfway through to the episode, I do just, like, need to get some axe grinding out right now.
Oh yeah, get the whetstone.
Because, like I more or less I've said my piece, right?
Do you think we should get a whetstone so we can like make that noise for the podcast?
No, I think people would have a bad time.
Yeah, it probably sounds like the worst ASMR to do, huh?
I mean, you know, somebody probably likes it, and you know, power to you, but stay away from me.
We believe you, whetstone lovers out there.
But yeah, no, like I've more or less said my piece already for the most part. That like. Is just like taking the optimism of Star Trek into a very, like, dragging it into a very dark episode for no reason. And I think, like, the first interracial kiss on American television was Captain Kirk kissing Commander Uhura, and we looked this up yesterday, actually.
We did look this up yesterday. Unrelated, interestingly.
This was in the same year, but after Martin Luther King was shot.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King, who, like, personally wrote, at least one, probably multiple letters to the actress. I don't have her name off the top of my head. But, like, we have that moment mirrored in this episode, because one of the actresses playing, like, the support, like, the kidnapped cast is black, and it's, like...
Very similar vibes.
Yeah, no, and the main guy is, like, he is Kirk, right? He is a Kirk type. And they're using effects to make it look like the original series. Like, these characters are explicitly these two. And, they're just using, like, this actually, like, deeply progressive thing that actual Star Trek actually did. That was, like, scandalous at the time. And they're, like, recasting it in this microcosm as a sexual assault. Right? And that is, like... That's not just, like undermining the optimism of Star Trek as, like, a vague concept. That is, like, undermining, like, the actual accomplishment of Star Trek, the, like, show that is trying to, like, that is trying and somewhat succeeding to, like, tell the stories of, like, breach, like, evil norms. And I just, like, that's, like, what the fuck are you doing?
I think it's kind of interesting because it strikes me as deeply entwined with a certain phenomenon in internet culture, right? Where you specifically have this, like something that comes up to me a lot, right? It's the idea of, like, the Legend of Korra, right? Is kind of known, or was known at the time, for having implied lesbian romance.
Just
and then years pass, and people are like, wow, it's messed up that they didn't, like, make it more explicit.
You know who explicitly kissed for the first time gaily on television?
No?
Jadzia Dax in also Star Trek. Like, it's a bit of a weird episode, but, like you have to work to not see it. Like, this is a show that actually does this shit. Keep going with your point.
Okay, my point is just that I think it's one of those things where, like, we can often end up on the internet, in particular, I think, look back on something that was progressive for its time and be like, man, like, here's a bunch of nitpicks about it, and completely ignore the positive move forward. Like, we can absolutely say, it's pretty fucked up. It took so long for there to be an interracial kiss on television, but it was there, it was part of a movement, and, like, this episode, with what it's doing, does feel like it's taking that sort of, like, smug cynicism towards things in the past and being like, these things were flawed, and not really, like, taking in the understanding of why they were flawed, or, like, celebrating any of the successes. And, like, I don't know, it's one of those... It strikes me... I've had a very long conversation about, like, Superman deconstructions. And it's not something I'm particularly involved in, but my best friend very much is. And so it's very fun when people just go, like, hey, I had this extremely base take about how if a man had superpowers, he could use them poorly. Like, that is not something that these original works considered over the fucking decades they ran. And it kind of feels like the same thing here, to an extent, right?
Like, ultimately, like, I want to, my view is still that it is just window dressing. Because, like, I don't think they thought about the, like, oh yeah, no, we're recasting this interracial kiss as assault. And they didn't think about the utopian angle at all. What they're interested in is, like, dunking on nerds who are nostalgic for it in a, like, to be fair, like, I guess, like, in a purely aestheticized way.
No.
And, like, there's something there, right? Like, there are people who are like, get these politics out of my Star Trek.
Yeah, get
and
these politics out of my Metal Gear Solids and Fallout.
Yeah, and, like, you know, like, those people are insane, but...
Obviously.
With... Like,
but it doesn't feel like this episode does anything with that concept.
Yeah, no, like, they're not really taking them down successfully.
Like, it's gesturing at this idea that, like... Okay, if we're gonna be real brutal... White men in their 40s who haven't accomplished much but were into geekdom can escape into nostalgia as a way to cover up stuff and also then ignore some of the problematic aspects. But, like, that's not even the full extent of what this episode is saying. It's just kind of saying, like, sometimes white old nerds or middle-aged nerds are kind of pathetic and maybe very subtly a little bit sexist or racist.
No, like, the most charitable reading that one could make here is that, like, this episode is really like taking a swing at people who are, like, nostalgic without seeing the progressive politics of these things. But, like,
even that, I think, is giving it too much credit.
Yeah, no, that is the most charitable take one can have.
I don't
have
a
it.
Vague gesture towards the idea that, like, people can be problematic with
like,
nostalgia.
it is, like, at no point in this episode is it ever, like, saying that the original thing is actually being sullied by the thing that this guy is doing, right? The original thing is just content. I think that is, like, also part of the, like, disdain, like, the episode has for its main character, because, like, he is, like, it is
uninterested in examining how he became like this, right? Apart from just saying he suffers.
And it's uninterested in, like, giving any merit to nostalgia, right? It's like, maybe people do love these things for a reason. Like...
Because I think...
What if he loves them for a good reason? Like that... Or what if the things are actually good, but he loves them and doesn't see that, right? None of these things we care about, because it does not respect, or it's not even interested in examining, like, the value that media can have at all, or to people.
I think it's also an interesting thing that, like, because this episode does a thing that I've noticed in a lot of works, where a main character suffers and then is a bigot, and we just have these two things. And it's not like that connection doesn't exist in the real world, but it's mediated by something, right? Yeah. Like, lots of people suffer and do not be like, must be the fucking women, right? Like, that's not the default. That's a thing that is mediated by other things, by media, by, like, influencers, etc. But this episode is very much one in the limit of just being like, yeah, he is disrespected by his coworkers, thus he's kind of like a sex creep, but like in,
no, and like it's like it is sort of trotting also a very weird middle ground, because like he is like presumably like fucking rich. He's a CTO. Like
he has a great apartment.
He has to part own this company. Like, like what's he doing?
I mean,
he can quit.
He can quit. Like he can probably sell his shares, and like this seems like a wildly successful game, right? Like this is like the WoW of this universe or whatever. Like he can get off and probably like live scot-free for like years in luxury.
Or more terrifyingly, the EVE Online of this universe.
I wasn't gonna say that. That's too deep. That is too terrifying to reconsider. But like this is where we're at with this, right? We're like, you know how we have this thing with Black Mirror where we go, oh yeah, this could raise a lot of interesting questions, but then the show doesn't deal with it. Well, this one, I think, is really unique, because it starts dealing with them until the halfway point and then says, anyway, we're heisting, boys.
Yeah, no, and I think this is, like, maybe a rare case of, like, Black Mirror well and truly flinching, because, like, it goes out of its way to go, like, no, we're not doing sexual assault as a theme. Like, we're having a little bit of it as, like, part of the general bad vibes, but it's not gonna be, like, don't worry, none of them have genitals, which is, like, insane in its own right.
Like, that's the thing, right? The idea of someone removing your ability to experience sexual pleasure, that could be a very serious storyline.
Oh,
right?
yeah, no, but,
like,
it's...
like if you're not, if you don't just flinch at like, ooh, penis, like, you can do something with that.
But we just get like a few bits with like a unsettling prosthetic of a Barbie groin.
Yeah, and it's like that does actually kind of, like, I think you're right about this, that it feels like a flinching moment where they're like, oh man, what the fuck are we doing, dude? Like, we've said like he's weird about women, clearly, but like, we're not gonna go there, right? And then everyone goes like, yeah, obviously we're not gonna go there.
Yeah, no, and like, to be fair, like, you don't have to, but you have to go somewhere. And let's see, where do we go with this?
So, my plan here, and I'm proposing this mid-episode, but like, can we just go through the rest of the plot like quickly? Because like, I don't have a lot to dive into. I'll be very honest.
I might have stuff.
Okay, fair enough. So we are at the halfway point where like the crew has a discussion. They basically go like, don't try to oppose him. We've tried a bunch of stuff. It doesn't work. Or we don't have genitals as a part of this. That's when the pussy line gets dropped. Man, it's kind of wild that we have, like, I'm glancing to Game of Thrones also having a very infamous pussy line, and I'm just like, man, what a fascinating little connection. Sorry, that just kind of took me by storm.
But like the sort of inciting incident for like, no, we need to get out of here, is like the resistance continues, and pull up the names, please, because
okay, yes, absolutely.
I want to respect these actors a bit. Oh shit.
Do you remember which ones are which? So that's the black woman. That's the Russian lady who gets turned into an alien.
Yeah, no. So no, the Russian lady doesn't get turned into an alien. The black one. It is.
Oh no! Sorry, I'm talking about different. I'm talking that she gets turned into a blue alien.
Okay,
not
so
alien. Yes, sorry. We got a little bit ahead of ourselves.
So there's so after once more, Kristen Milioti rebels.
Yeah.
This
Is this where she decides she doesn't want to kiss him, or is this something else?
I think it's not kissing him.
No. This is where, okay, so there's a moment where she goes like, oh, I can hack and send like an invite message out to my real self, where it goes kind of like conspiracy text, and obviously the real Kristen Milioti goes, what the hell is this? Shows it to Evil Man, and he goes, that's probably spam. You know how spam bots are, talking about rescuing us from the inside of the game? There's a bit of like a bleak world building, isn't it?
I mean, that it would be a very fun type of spam to do.
I think I'm more likely to be taken in by that than Nigerian princess, to be entirely honest.
Yeah, no, I get it's a very unique demographic to it. But yeah, no, like they get out this like, please save us text, immediately fail, and he comes back angry. So
Michaela Cowell.
Yeah, Michaela Cowell playing Shania Lowry.
Because she's British. She's British.
Oh, right. You know, I on reflection, like, yeah, that is the thing. She like stands up for she consistently is like really keeping, like, she is girl power. She's like solidarity, and she stands up and she's like, we'll convince her to like do your weird shit, just like don't like ruin, like brutalize her this time. And
there's a fake out for a moment.
There's a fake out, and then he goes, all right, I'm turning you into a like alien that can't talk.
Yeah. Like
a weird alien monster.
Which has happened to a lady in marketing previously.
Yeah, and it's like sort of a Tyranid type.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think it's generic sci-fi insect, to be honest. I don't think there's a lot of...
Yeah, that's fair. And it is at this point that they redouble their efforts to escape. And like the mechanics of this are like, there's a wormhole which sort of symbolizes the update in game.
Which is going to lead to like a temporary connection to the internet for this like sub-universe they're in.
I think the internet... So they need to like steal the boss's communicator to get to the internet, and then steal their DNA outside of the game, and then fly into the wormhole to get hit by the firewall and have the sweet release of death.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that sounds right.
So we'll have to have a content warning for suicide also. I'm remembering now. God, what an episode.
What an episode.
And it is at this point during this discussion that we have the evil CEO who's like kind of like a sex pest in the real world. He's like, I'm not on board with this. He has shit on me, namely the DNA of my son, who is going to keep killing in-game if I transgress.
Yeah.
Which is like...
Like, that's a big thing to introduce here.
Yeah, no, that's like... horrific. Again, like...
It is horrific, and also, like, meaningless in the greater context here. Because, like, the idea of being stuck in here permanently is already really bad. And obviously they're pointing out that, like, oh yeah, even if we can kill ourselves, we might be brought back. Which obviously, like, you know, that instance isn't going to feel it, but, like, you know, the cycle will just repeat.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not like this requires that much special consideration. They just add an extra step to the heist plan.
Yeah, no. And...
yeah, this is where it gets really difficult, to be honest.
Yeah, no, like, the heist itself is like, they get the real, Nanette, the real Kristen Milletti, to steal the DNA by blackmailing her with her nudes from her photo bucket.
Yeah.
And, like, in the meantime, they distract the guy long enough to, like, fly into the wormhole and kill themselves.
Yeah.
That is the plan. And
this is also where I don't think this is meaningful at all. It is kind of interesting that this is where it kind of gets explicitly horny in a way, right? Because there's a sex blackmailing going on, right? And simultaneously, the in-universe Nanette is going like, hey, I'm gonna use my feminine wiles to distract them while they steal his computer.
I mean, okay, like, I don't think that one is ever played sexy, right?
You don't think so?
No, I think she, like, acts it very, like, I'm always uncomfortable, like, even when I'm, like, putting on a bit of a brave face, like...
Oh, yeah, no, I agree with that, but I think... Yeah.
No, I don't think the camera works is like, that horny for her either.
There's a little bit at the start, but,
maybe,
like, I think that's probably just part of the narrative. I don't think it's, like, outstandingly weird.
And that sort of, like, runs head-on into the weird juxtaposition of the sex blackmail, because what they have set up here is her blackmailing her... Like, this is, like, consensual blackmail, I guess, because she is the same person twice, so it's okay for it to be funny, and they like, this is where I write down the bizarre tone jumble note, because, like
there's also a scene where the entire crew looks at her nudes and goes, hot damn! Like, both the women, well, the woman that's remaining and the men are like, gosh darn!
Yeah,
she's good at this.
Like, I don't know. Here's the thing. Like, this scene kind of works for me. Like, it's just like a bit of, like, fun comedy that it just, like, isn't, like, in the right place.
It does strike me as, like, this has Rachel, Jack, and Ashley too, but, like, in miniature, right? No, like, it's not as outlandish, but it is, like...
No, it is just, like, genuinely, like, earnestly goofy in, like, a bizarre way. Yeah. And, like, it works, I guess, but, like, it just, like, I genuinely was like, this is funny and I'm laughing against my will. Not like, because, you know, I resent this episode.
Yeah, no, that part has been made clear, I think.
But, like, they pull this bit off. It's just out of place in a, like, this is not, like, this is not that far
To be
removed
honest-
from, like, he airlocked my son's copy and he's gonna keep fucking doing it.
Yeah, like, to be honest, there's an interesting moment where, like, because I didn't remember the sex blackmail thing, but I did, like, there's kind of, like, where they're setting up the plan, like, in the Star Trek version of Kristen, basically goes, like, I know my photo bucket password, and I have some terrible pictures that are very embarrassing on there, and I was kind of like, ooh, obviously we're meant to believe that these are sexual in nature, but what if they're just, like, her being like a diehard fan of Nickelback or something, you know, like I think there's out there for funny subversion. There's no subversion; it's just what you expect. But, like, fair enough, you know, like
and, like, I do think there is, like, I guess, like, a tiny cybersecurity lesson here, which is, like, you know,
she has a great password for directing.
she has a great
She has an
password on the
insanely
one
good
hand,
password.
but she is using, like, a dead service, like, way after.
Yeah.
So, you know, if a service is kind of on the outs, you know, migrate your stuff, I guess. You know, keep your shit,
We're
together.
really finding a lot of practical lessons from Black Mirror, aren't we? There's this like, drive better, don't, you know, like, it's a lot.
Yeah, no, if don't do hijinks and drive. But yeah, no, they pull off the heist, right? It's
Yeah, like a lot of stuff happens, but, like, none of it is important.
yeah, no, like I mean, heist movies generally are a bit like this, right? It's, like, very intricate, like, plot mechanics.
For
Like,
sure,
At
like,
the end of the day, it is like, do they do it or do they not? And, you know, we need some ways to have, like, scenes of tension.
For sure. Like,
And
there's nothing
Yeah.
remarkable about it. It goes through and it happens.
Yes. What is interesting, I would say, is the ending. Because,
They
like,
don't kill themselves.
well, yeah, no, they don't succeed in killing themselves, right?
They try very hard.
So there's two very crucial things that happen. They get through the wormhole.
Mm-hmm.
There's three things. The CEO guy, like, straight up, like, gets himself fucking incinerated, and also stuck in the hell dimension to get everyone else out. Which is who? And
That's hot, you know? That's
yeah, no, like, genuinely, like he has a very good, like, send off, like, fuck you scene. Like, they just straight up pull that off. He's like, oh yeah, no, fuck you, and then he gets absolutely, like, viscerally incinerated.
Oh yeah.
And it's, like, the coolest scene in the episode by, like, bar none. Like, nothing else, like, even tries that hard. And, like, oh man, hot damn. Like, you know, it's like basic screenwriting stuff. A shitty guy gets to, like, have his heroic moment and, like, redeem himself,
Yeah, and also
before
do this-
getting fucking eviscerated. Like,
while doing a cool speech that shows his defiance, but also a bit of character growth.
yeah, no, like, it's banging. And then the two crucial things happen. They get through the wormhole, and we have like a little bit of a fake out where it's like they're like it's an inversion of right. They're like, oh yeah, no, I hope we manage to die.
It's a good line. Like, it's like, you know, I just think it's like a mildly good line.
Yeah, no, and then, like, we do have the, like, very climactic, like, oh yeah, no, will they get there? Won't they get there? And all with the setup that they're going to fucking die. Like, this, all this, like, dramatic tension is in service of them, like, managing the mass suicide to escape their hell simulation. And then the show flinches again, because it's like, haha, they escape the game, but they're in the real game now, so they're basically actually doing Star Trek now.
Yeah, like Star Trek, but, like, with the Expanse aesthetics now, to show that I guess things are good now.
To show that they've left the mod and they're in the cloud, they're in a video game.
Yeah, and they're just kind of like, they immediately embrace that, because, like, I feel like there's that obvious thing here. We could just be like, well, you're still stuck in, like, a video game. Like, it might not be existentially fulfilling. No, they're just like, cool, sick. Yeah. We have our genitals back. This is where one of the characters looks in their pants and just kind of goes, neat. And I'm just like, ooh.
Yeah, and we have the second flinch, which is like, I don't like, this one's a bit complicated, right? Because the second time the episode flinches is that the main bad guy, Jesse Plemons, he, by virtue of their escape, they have actually managed to like keep him stuck in the simulation forever.
Yeah.
Like he, like, space is deleted around him and he is stuck in a black void. And if you'll remember, this ties up like one loose end neatly, which is like Janice from accounting or something gets to also at least die.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't show up on the good side.
No, it's like what is it? We see like the Khan, I want to say, analog. He gets to show up on the ship.
Oh yeah.
And also interracial kiss lady.
Yeah. And, you know, she is reverted back to human.
Yes.
Like, they could have just done that for the accounting lady, and, like...
Did you also, like, there's an earlier throwaway line where they go, oh yeah, there's, like, thousands of people like her in this world. And I'm just like, what the hell? Like, this reminds me of Joan is Awful, because you can go like, oh yeah, there's, like, billions of people in these simulations. And I'm like... What you need to fucking...
Well, they wrap it up by killing them all.
Yeah, but it's kind of like you need to talk about the scale you're working with.
Yeah,
like, are you going to engage with the scale, or are you just going to be like,
we're not.
whatever?
We're not.
No,
we're not.
we never are.
And we're also going to tie up the loose end of like, oh yeah, no, he's just gonna like gather more DNA by like, no, he's mind trapped in the mind palace.
Like he's effectively dead, but like hyper torture.
I mean, he is going to like starve to death, like in his apartment.
So
is like the implication.
But there's like there's a really interesting thing here, right? Where it's like the tools of the master of it, right? Like, because it's not like the show actually takes this seriously, but you could very much point out that like they're in hell, right? Like they have committed very, very finite crimes and are receiving infinite punishment, and then at the very end they go like, but we're hitting up this guy also with infinite punishment.
Which like they don't try to do that though, right? So that's sort of like, and
like it's just like, it feels a bit weird to be like, oh, but this guy was bad, so he's getting stuck forever potentially.
Yeah, I mean, he dies.
Hopefully,
like he dies the most he dies a horrifying death, which is like alone in space, but also like starving physically, like in
his
the
own
real
apartment.
world. Or like I guess like dying of thirst.
Yeah, like I mean, there's that. I think that ending is quite open ended, right? Because it's like, well, could they retrieve him from there? Like I guess my thought is always like, why is there always like a sense of like, oh, if you somehow get trapped in VR, it's impossible to get out? Like, surely people thought of that. Like this doesn't even seem like that complicated of a situation.
I mean, I don't think we can like interrogate the mechanics too much.
No, I don't think it's important.
And like to like send off the episode, we don't look at the real world again, except to like watch the guy like destined for death.
Yeah, just suffer.
But to send off the episode, we have a cameo by Aaron Paul, who is a gamer in the video game.
His gamer 691 specifically. Put some respect on the name. He's king of space.
Yeah, who like bullies them out of his sector after they like realize they're alive.
Yeah.
But
he wanted to trade, and they didn't have anything to trade.
And Milietti is the captain now, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's pretty messed up, honestly. Like, I feel like they should, there's gotta be some democratic stuff going on here.
I mean, she kind of earned it. I think it's sort of like a spontaneous consensus vibe that I'm getting.
I guess.
But
I think also, like, this is where there is that glee that comes out from Black Mirror, where they're like, look, they're sitting in Star Trek poses, but, like, edgily, and they say fuck. And, like, I look at that and I'm like, God, they're so pleased with this, aren't they?
Yeah, no, so, I know, I the episode, like, keeps flinching, and it, like, I don't know what to, like, super do with that, because, like, one theory that sort of like I think of now is like, is maybe having a group suicide like be the triumphant ending something they didn't want to do?
It's interesting because, like, I think this is something you're going to experience a lot when we go further with this podcast, which is that, like, early Black Mirror is committed to being, like, as bleak as humanly possible. Not necessarily as dark as humanly possible, but as bleak. Mm-hmm. And I think at some point they realized, like, oh man, people seem to, like happy endings sometimes. And this one feels so undeserved, right? Like, it just goes like, oh, I guess they were wrong about killing themselves. They're now good to go. Like, it's just like, but why does this make things... Like, it just like... I don't know, it feels like an artificial way to just be like, look, happy ending.
I mean, I feel like to some degree, I want to be like, oh, you know, I would respect this episode more if all the characters, like, if it stuck to, like, the characters go, like, we're gonna kill ourselves to get out of this hell, and then they do it. But, like, you know, I don't know. I don't know if I can summon the, like, this is wasted potential energy.
I guess not. Like, I mean, they wasted the potential much earlier. I suppose, like, I wonder if in a way... Because, like, the setup here of the final 20 minutes or so, less than that, 15 minutes, is I have no mouth and I must scream, right? Like, it's, here's a collection of people. One of them will be stuck here in awful pain. The rest will die. But then they go, nah. No, they will actually be, like, not only alive, they will have a cool spaceship and they can go anywhere, and they can
get their genitals
they'll
back.
Get their genitals back, perhaps even improved genitals, given that it's the future.
Oh yeah, sweet future genital.
I really like. I know this is probably not at all intentional. I really like to think of this episode as foreshadowing for Striking Vipers. You know, like it's good. Well, it's not, but you know.
So,
like, what do we do here at the end? You know, I don't know.
Counterfactuals, I guess.
Okay.
Like if we just like had the episode like, okay, so like here's the pitch. We start in the real world with, Kristen Milioti, and then we transition to the simulation, and we never get out.
Could be interesting, yeah.
And like they just like find another way to do the heist
like,
without needing to interact with the outside, because I think that actually subtracts.
Yeah,
right?
because like once Kristen Milioti gets harvested, right, like there's no point in the outside anymore apart from being like, here's a little extra spice to the heist.
Yeah, no, and like sure, it's cool to have like a spicy heist, but at the end of the day, like it undercuts like the central like notion of being trapped.
Yeah, it also just takes time, right?
Yeah. So, and like the episode is like what, an hour 15 minutes, so like they could have cut like 30 minutes of episode and it would have been like within like the regular range of length.
Yeah, I think like there's some interesting ways this could have gone, right? Like you could definitely have like a more thorough examination of nostalgia and interaction with like male entitlement, I suppose. Although now that I say that, the latter part is what they did in Beyond the Sea. That wasn't good either. But you know, like there's an interesting thing here. Is like, how does this completely meek individual become so hateful? Like how does this nerd become an abuser? Right? Like that is an interesting concept.
Yeah, I guess that could be like another thread, right? We could just go like we could. Like, he could be our focus, and we could, like, do a character study of him, like... But, like, the episode isn't like, oh, yeah, no, like, he like, has this power, and it, like, turns him evil. Like, no, he built a torture chamber for his friend that he secretly hates.
Yeah, like, right? he started at evil, right? Like,
yeah,
by all accounts... Like, it's a weird thing, right? Where, like, I think media in general... The prime emotion evoked when looking at pathetic nerds is pity, right? But they're not usually evil. Like, at worst, they tend to be a bit creepy towards women, and then they are set straight to some extent, because they are at least decent at heart, right? So this, looking into the, like, revenge fantasies of nerds, That's a good start. Like, genuinely, I think that's a really interesting start.
Yeah. And we don't really go anywhere with it.
Yeah, because, like, this is also, like, I was going to say, on the topic of, like, Black Mirror accidentally touching on stuff that comes years afterwards, this is, like, you know, people making, like, AI porn of celebrities and, like, weird stuff like that, right? Like,
Yeah.
there is some interest here
Yeah,
in
no,
how
like,
it touches upon reality.
yeah, no, like the entitlement in like other people's like bodies specifically is like an unpleasant foreshadowing that like the episode does kind of like nail with the like semi-slow roll of the reveal, like, oh yeah, no, like these people are not here consensually.
Yeah, and like there's obviously, like, I mean, I don't think it's accidental that, you know, the whole he kisses all the female crew members after every successful mission, like, that's made a point of.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's made a point that that's really gross, but like they don't do anything with it after that, right? It's just like, oh yeah, he's a bit extra creepy towards the women. Done.
Yeah.
Like, okay, but like, why? Like, why did he design this world to be like this? Why is he still like intent on maintaining like it being wholesome and non-sexual? Why is he kind of like weirded out by Kristen Milioti like doing like trying to entice him sexually? Like there's stuff here that's really interesting.
Yeah, no, like his arc in like functionally is just straight up like finish like 15 minutes in or something, right?
Yeah.
When he's like, oh, I like when he like lunges for the cup, right? Because the arc is like, oh yeah, no, is he a weird guy? Is he a normal guy? And like
It's done there.
Yeah, no, and like he doesn't change from then on. And sure, we get like some glimpses into like his weird psychology, but it's not like a complete character study by any means.
No, but like, and it's interesting because like this came out in 2017. This is contemporaneous with like the rise of incels, and like this is this is an incel. Like, right, like genuinely, this is an incel.
Yeah, no, and he's like extra weird about it.
Yeah, but like in a way that I think is absolutely compatible with certain dimensions of inceldom, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, women must be proper and must be like decoration.
Yeah, but yeah, no, like it, like that thread also like sort of falls flat, and like the nostalgia thread, right? Like we never engage with what the property like is like
Yeah, like
if
what
he's
Star Trek actually is.
like, yeah, no, and like he like we never like look into like is he being faithful or not, like is he nostalgic in a healthy or unhealthy way, right? Like it's
Does
not,
it give him some sort of like succor, you know, like does it give
Yeah.
him relief in some way? Like, I think it's interesting because when we looked at other Black Mirror episodes that were like clearly there's a lot of wasted potential here, it's more general, right? But this is like, this feels like it has a very tight idea of like nostalgia, male entitlement, like that's a very obvious direction to go, and it just stops on the road and kind of goes, I'm getting out of this car and leaving this highway.
yeah, and you know it's I don't know, like that's sort of what I like. I just end up like lingering on. No, the episode flinches. Right?
Yeah.
It just
It flinches really hard, and in support of like the vague fuzzy feels of like a happy ending that is kind of like, eh?
yeah, no, and like it doesn't commit to the horror. It like I guess it kind of cares about the heist, but like what does the heist mean, right?
It's not much, right? Like, it's at the end of the day, this is about the grand evil wizard has trapped us in a cocoon, and we're trying to cut ourselves out.
Like it's we're doing horror, and then we're like, oh, that was too rough. We're gonna to escape from this horror, and it's like if
It's weird, right? Like, but I don't know. I really get stuck on this, that it's such a fascinating idea of like the other episodes of Black Mirror that miss out on potential could have gone in many different directions. This had a really obvious direction.
yeah, no, like it keeps picking up like quite heavy and meaty ideas, and then going like, ooh, that was too much. I'm putting this down.
Yeah.
And
But like we know where like if you watch the first 10 minutes of this, you go, I get where this is going. Then it doesn't. It's just, I don't know, in a weird way this is actually like more depressing than the ones where they're like, oh, this could have gone in a lot of different interesting directions and it picked a boring direction. Because this one was on the road to being an interesting direction.
I don't know, like it's not that out of step with like a lot of season 5.
Maybe, but
I feel like we're kind of in the interregnum here.
Maybe.
Like, where they're just like not committing to saying anything.
I think this is the like part that is gonna get really interesting, because I think, from my memory, I think the earlier Black Mirror committed really hard. Not always successfully.
Yeah.
But they did. And
yeah.
I think it is a better show for that. And them flinching just makes every miss feel so much worse, right?
Yeah, like...
You had a good thing going.
Like, the episode feels both, like, empty and also, like, quite offensive on, like, on, like, the grounds that I've laid out. And... yeah, no, like, I'm starting to run out of good faith, honestly.
Like, I think that's fair, because it's like when the heist part gets picked up, like that's it, right? Like that's where it goes, and you know that's where it goes at this point. Because if you watch season 5 and season 6, you know what's gonna happen. Like, they're doing the heist, they're not flinching from that. There's not gonna be a twist there. Well, I mean, I guess there is a twist, but like one that doesn't really affect it.
Yeah, like we even end in like an interesting place that goes unexamined, right? Because like we have like like sort of the vibe I'm getting, and this is like a bit much inferring here, is that like there are no NPCs in the stuff this guy makes.
Right.
Like the game is like an MMO, and we're never given the impression that there is any NPCs. It's just like, yeah, no, there is people in this game and there are other players. And we are then introducing like real people to the simulation, and like, you know, like it like that's like a cool idea to go like, oh yeah, I know, like through like, you know, a marvelous glitch we have just like have sapient people in the like video game simulation. Like, you know, like if
that sure is something.
If that is like, if that was like the halfway point, and then they had to like deal with stuff, that would be pretty cool. Maybe.
Okay, Jürgen, given that I think we're drawing towards the end here, can I make you sad?
I guess.
I think it's plot relevant information here. There's going to be a sequel to this episode in the next season of Black Mirror.
I mean, I want it to be good, but I don't have great hopes. I guess to shift to a lighter note, this episode did have at least one good outcome, which is that it got Kristen Milioti hired to play more or less this role in the two-season TV show Made for Love, where she is the girlfriend of an insane tech mogul who has her brain all kind of invaded. And I'm pretty sure there's some very direct line from her being in this episode to her being in that series.
It kind of feels messed up in a way, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, she...
I kind of like be weirded out if like the casting director is like, you know what you look like? You look like you'd be a perfect brainless bot for your boyfriend.
Oh, no, like she also resists successfully.
No, I get that, but it's like it's kind of weird being placed in that situation multiple times. Anyway.
I mean, I guess if you have seen someone successfully play that role before,
yeah,
you can be like, well, we don't have to say that to anyone. We can be like, hey, we have material evidence to believe that you're good for this, so we're not being weird for approaching you.
And we have to say, like, she does spend an truly inordinate amount of time looking either uncomfortable or scared.
Yeah, no, she's real good at those.
I really empathize with that part. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm done with this episode. And I have to say, next week is going to be what I would consider one of the most, like, archetypical Black Mirror episodes.
I don't know if I'm looking forward to it.
Because I think also, like, there haven't been that many, like, full archetypical. I think Smithereens is, like, the closest, maybe, that we've seen up so far. But we're getting into the typecast era of Black Mirror, I think.
Okay. Well, I guess that'll give us some direction.
I think it'll say something about something.
Like, I don't know, watch any episode of Star Trek instead.
There's a good one with Picard and space and time thinking.
No, not that one. That one's also kind of ends on a weird note.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
But yeah, no. I mean, Star Trek's hit or miss.
Do you want to do another 20 minutes of talking about Star Trek? Because I kind of feel like it's in you now.
I mean, honestly, I think we might end up doing like an episode that's just, hey, let's do an episode on Star Trek.
It's not impossible.
But you know, either way, we'll see you next week probably.
For Archangel is what it's called, but it's Mortal Kombat Archangel. Okay, it's spelled with a K instead of a C and an H.
Huh.
Make of that what you will.
I don't know what to make of that. Goodbye, dear listeners.
Goodbye, dear listeners. This has been Jim with a G and
Jorgen's Smorgasbord.